really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it all over the globe. If you'd like to get in touch, well, I'm easy to find on all your socials, and you can always just drop an email to thescrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, as you have undoubtedly discovered, this is not your usual weekly episode, but is in fact yet another bonus episode. This time, we're doing a bit of a deep dive into the National Provincial Championship in New Zealand. So the past few weeks, doing the NPC as a segment in the normal weekly show has really taken a lot of time and space. So with the return of the major Northern Hemisphere competitions, I thought I'd give the NPC a little space to breathe, enjoy its own spotlight, so to speak. So I am a huge fan of the NPC. It's exciting. It's often high scoring. There's a Super Rugby / All Blacks connection that makes it really interesting from week to week, no matter what. What I mean is each NPC team is connected with a New Zealand Super Rugby team. So there are Super Rugby players sort of filtering in and out, depending on a whole multitude of factors. And of course, that in turn means suddenly a team you hardly recognize any players on it at all of a sudden 3 to 5 All Blacks are suddenly there making appearances. It just kind of adds a bit of spice to the regular season. On top of that, though, the NPC is the only comp I know that uses what they call the Storm Week format. Basically, each team has to play, in addition to their normal weekly fixtures, one additional fixture on a Wednesday, with the end result being 10 games played from just 9 rounds of action. I'm told the players aren't particularly fond of that, but as a fan, it really just adds that extra layer, really puts a test to the depth of these teams as well. And there's, of course, all this extra strategizing that goes into it. How are you going to handle your Storm Week fixture? So this year, Hawke's Bay, they started the season in possession of the Ranfurly Shield. In case you missed it, I just had a chat with Joel Hintz, the Magpies tight head. It was a great interview, by the way. Definitely check it out if you haven't heard or seen it yet. He's a really interesting guy and just a hell of a player. So his Hawke's Bay team, they went on a tear at the end of last season and found themselves in the final against Taranaki, who were led by another former and future Free Jack, another favorite of mine for obvious reasons, Jason Patras. The Bulls were too much in the end, and if they somehow repeat in just a few weeks, Potty will have won 4 titles in 24 months, and he would damn well deserve it. The guy is phenomenal. We're getting near the end of this year's competition, so to sort of fend off the sadness that I'm already starting to feel, I figured we'd sort of look closely at all the action this weekend and then look ahead to the final round before the postseason actually gets underway. So, of course, we got to start with the Storm Week fixture, a great rivalry. The Taranaki Bulls hosting North Harbour. This is a matchup that typically yields tons of points and, a fairly even record between the two historically. Josh Jacob, who had to leave the field last week, he was already back starting for the home team, though I'm concerned that Jason Patras, just mentioned him, he also left the pitch last week and wasn't anywhere in the 23 for this game. They didn't even mention him, though, so is that bad news? Is he totally fine? Potty doesn't often miss time, so I couldn't help feel worried about his absence. Maybe it was just a planned rest for Storm Week. Anyway, former favorite Free Jack, Jesse the Pest Peretti, he was also getting the start. I always like to see that. I love the guy. But it was North Harbour's Timafanga Anuku getting the first try of the night, with his side hungry to add to their 2-win total this season. Side note, Tima, of course, is the older brother of Lester Fainga Anuku, and he wasn't the only sibling of an All Black on the pitch today. Lester, of course, has 7 caps for New Zealand, while Waisaki Naholo, you might have heard of him, he got 27 in his day, and it was his younger brother, Kini, playing for Taranaki. Kini Naholo, he got his first career hat trick last weekend. Looked anxious for more, but through 3/4, the try line had evaded him. By the way, Kini and Lester were born just 2 days apart in 1999. Kind of cool. And a final side note on this. Why was Lester named Lester? Why, because his father was playing for Tonga in the 1999 Rugby World Cup, and when his second son was born, he was in England with the team based in You got it, Leicester. Anyway, it was a really close one. The home team, they were up 3 at the break. Entering the final 20 minutes, it was still anyone's game thanks to a hat trick, not from Naholo, but from Ricky Riccatelli. By the time the dust settled, it was another win for the reigning champions, taking down a spirited North Harbour side 31-25. The Bulls might be peaking at just the right time. So early Friday morning, where I am, Counties Monaco, they were hosting Wellington. This matchup is a contest for the Jonah Lamu Trophy, by the way, a tradition dating back just to 2016. This year, Wellington could cement a top 2 spot in the playoffs with a win. The home team, they came out looking to prove something, but it couldn't quite stick. Like, for me, they're one of those teams that tends to do one too many things on attack. Like, they'll try to beat one extra defender or reach out for one more meter, and that's always where it goes wrong. You know what? Sometimes if Hoskins Suzudu is like right on your shoulder, maybe you offload rather than trying to beat a 4th straight defender. Anyway, it was Counties on the board first. However, the fans, braving what they described as freezing cold temperatures, they were well into it. They took complete control as the half wore on, getting a driving ball all the way from the line's 22 to make it a stunning 17-0. And they got their 3rd try after the stroke of halftime. What a performance from the Steamers. The second 40 went much the way of the first. The Steelers romping to 6 tries and looking like shutting out their guests before they relaxed, a bit at the end, giving the Lions a chance to get a pair themselves just in the last, 7 minutes or so. But in the end, an incredible, thorough win to retain the Jonah Lamu Trophy and bringing down the table toppers 51-12 in Pukekohe. Next up, Bay of Plenty versus Northland was on the docket. The Steamers had, of course, won all 4 home games this season and had won 4 of their last 5 against Northland. It looked like that trend would continue as they found themselves up 15-3 before even 20 minutes had gone by. Akoi, he got his 2nd try of the season to make it 27-3 at the break, and it wasn't until after the 70-minute mark that the Tiny Fa would get another point, just a complete dismantling, 53-13 all told in that one. Next up, I'm just going to quote from the comms from the opening where they said, quote, "A lot can change in a short time in the NPC. Just ask the Hawke's Bay Magpies. They flew into September unbeaten and holders of the Ranfurly Shield 3 weeks later. The Shield's gone. They've dropped 3 straight, and now they have to get their mojo back against an Auckland team scrapping to stay in the race for a quarterfinal," unquote. I mentioned it last week, the swoon for the Magpies. It's been remarkable, but I don't know. I had a gut feeling that we'd finally get that bounce back today. A gorgeous day in Napier, by the way. And also, I was very excited to see Leroux Milan getting back in the 23 for the home team. Auckland, they were missing a few key players. But they always seem to show up when it counts, so I was right on the edge of my seat as this thing got underway. Lincoln McClutchy, by the way, he is the Iron Man of this club, getting the start in his 29th consecutive appearance. And by the way, a season with the San Diego Legion was kind of sandwiched in the middle of those games as well. Love this guy. Anyway, of course, they grabbed me by the heartstrings, too, at the opening as Charlotte Parsons, the little 5-year-old daughter of the captain, Tom Parsons. She ran out the game ball into the field. I am such a sucker for that stuff. A beautiful moment, though. What a smile and what a happy dad. Auckland, they were first on the board. The hosts were in a bit of a hole early before righting the ship somewhat and getting within shouting distance, 10-18 at the break. Some serious craziness early in the second half. It was a nasty but not vicious attack. I don't want to call it an attack. An accident, we'll call it. 2 Auckland players sort of each lifted a leg apiece and ultimately kind of pile drived a Hawke's Bay player over the horizontal and straight down on his head. He bounced right up, seemed no worse for the wear, but it did lead to 2 simultaneous yellow cards, a huge shift in momentum possibly. Ironically, it was one of those times where the offender actually got the worst of it. Zarn Sullivan taking a knock from a bit of a whiplash on the ground. I was hoping that they would send the doctor over to check on him as he sat there in the sin bin. So nothing left to lose. Vahakolo, he took advantage of the 2-player deficit to get the home team within 3, but that's all they got out of it. When the 10 minutes was up, Auckland immediately struck again. The Magpies looked like they're in serious trouble to me. It was 29-35 with maybe, 90 seconds left. After a long, punishing drive, it was Ben O'Donnell getting through out wide, setting up a do-or-die conversion from the sideline. Harry Godfrey, he lined it up and nailed it. Euphoria at McLean Park, the Magpies breaking their losing streak and shocking Auckland at the death. An incredible finish, 36-35 in an absolute instant classic. So good. So next on the list, Otago, they were hosting Tasman, who definitely went pretty light on selection in anticipation of their Storm Week fixture. Pardon me, that's also a Ranfurly Shield defense on Wednesday. It wasn't the most exciting game I've ever watched, but it was close, 14-10 at halftime, with both teams leaving some opportunities wanting. Around the 55th minute, the Mako, they took their first lead in the night, but Otago, they bounced back soon after. With a badly timed yellow card against the visitors, Otago, they pulled away for good, adding an insult-to-injury try just before the clock went red, coming away with what looked like, much more of a lopsided victory than it actually was. 47-31 was your final score at the Forsyth Bar. Then, Southland, they were up next versus Waikato. The Stags' playoff hopes had already been dashed with just 2 wins on the season so far, but I don't know. I just really like this team. There's just something cool about them. One thing I like about them is the atmosphere when they're at home. They have the most old-school scoreboard I've ever seen, with an actual clock with hands, and they have an actual guy up there to change the scores by hand like it's a 1950s baseball stadium or something. By the way, the wizened fellow who had assumed those duties once again wasn't even wearing Southland gear, as this week he had on, wait for it, a Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat hat. How classic can you be? Anyway, Waikato, they jumped out early, but give them credit, the hosts, they worked their way back into it and tied it at 14 as we went into the lockers. Quick side note, the Stags Stadium, the aptly named Rugby Park, has a very sort of sports ground feel to it for Connacht. For the viewer, it feels a lot like Galway, sort of complete with, massive swirling winds and seagulls, all desperate to not get pegged by errant kicks. Anyway, sadly, the home team, they had nothing to offer in the second half. The Mooloos running away with it to the tune of 14-38. Disappointing year for Southland, but I think I'm still only 3 beers away from buying one of their jerseys. I just love that logo. Anyway, North Harbour versus Canterbury was our penultimate fixture in the penultimate round. And yes, using that word twice in a row definitely made me feel unclean, in case you were wondering. Canterbury, they had won their last 9 games in a row against Harbour, but Tane Edmed, who had been leveling up at the NPC while his erstwhile Wallaby squad have gone about their sputtering campaign in the boringly named Rugby Championship, he led his team to 3 unanswered tries before even 20 minutes had gone by. What was up with Canterbury? So 29-19 was your halftime score. The home team weren't done by a mile. Sean Stevenson's try on the cusp of the final quarter made it a shocking 55-19. Edmed just locked in from the boot. To repeat myself, what was up with Canterbury? They got not one single point in the second 40 minutes. North Harbour just stomped them into the turf, winning 65-19, and the comms said, quote, "This is not a team you want to meet in the playoffs," unquote. I'm with them on that one. Anyway, to close out the weekend, if not the round, it looked like a bad mismatch on paper, with the Bulls of Taranaki hosting 1-win Manawatu. But good news for the Turbos, Isaiah Armstrong-Ravula was back from helping Fiji win the Pacific Nations Cup. To be honest, I didn't even know he was part of Mark Rogers' team. What a boost he might provide. So that, of course, moved Reese McDonald out to his more natural position, in my opinion, of fullback. And I was, starting to feel mildly hopeful. So on the other side, of course, I was concerned to see Jason Patras, again absent from the 23. That's 2 games in a row. Still haven't heard any news. Listeners, if you have the inside scoop, please let me know. It's unusual for him to miss any time at all, so this just really has started to feel worrisome for me. So Kini Noholo, he had moved over to the bench, so maybe the home team weren't too concerned about getting a win this week. Anyway, Manawatu, they did hold a lead most of the first half, but Taranaki, they nabbed a try and converted it to make it 14-12 at the intermission. They looked ready to run away with it mid through the second half, but the Turbojacks, they really showed some heart, kept clawing their way back into it. With 8.5 minutes to go, an incredible try out wide made it 33-31 with a kick to come. Come on, Turbos. That's no offense to the Bulls, by the way. I just don't think they need any extra help. At this point, it hasn't happened. No, the extras, they scraped wide to leave Taranaki in the lead. The golden light of the setting sun added its own drama to the spectacle. We had a beauty of a match to finish off Sunday. How good is the National Provincial Championship? A so slightly forward pass spelled the end for Manawatu. Taranaki holding on by the skin of their teeth for a 33-31 victory. Another gut punch for the Turbos for sure. Anyway, That, of course, was how the weekend would end. After Wednesday, all the teams will have played 9, and there's still so much left on the line. Wednesday, as we mentioned, it features Tasman's very late Storm Week fixture, where they try to retain the log of wood for another precious week, and then, oh my word, they have to try to hold on to it just 4 days later as they host the reigning champions, Taranaki. Question for the listeners, by the way, do teams rest players when their playoff positions are already secured in the NPC? Like, it's a big thing in the NFL. Like, the team you face in the final week, if they're going anywhere, look nothing like the team that they're going to field the following week. Will the Bulls keep their powder dry? Gotta say, just as soon as I wrote that down, I realized no way will they do that, because they have a chance to grab the Rand Furley Shield in the final game of the regular season and then use that momentum to grab another title. They're definitely bringing the full noise against the Mako, yeah? Anyway, then I actually looked ahead and got a feeling for what we have coming this weekend. It is just so good. We have a 1 versus 5 matchup in Wellington versus Hawke's Bay, a 7v6 in Canterbury versus Waikato, and the killer, the 3 versus 2 with the Shield up for grabs with Tasman versus Taranaki. Are you kidding me? Ironically, Northland and Southland are both out no matter what happens. I mean, you'd think that one of those directions would work, right? Mike Rogers' Turbo Jacks will be going home early again this year, and of course, Otago and Auckland might want to, I don't know, get together for a barbecue or something. So the sneaky bit, though, Bay of Plenty. Like, how did they sneak their way into 4th place? Does anyone remember playing or even watching them this year? I mean, okay, I do, because I'm such a sucker for Akoi, but still, I did not have them pegged as a top 4 team this year, and they get to play number 11, Auckland, in the last round, while carnage is raining all around them. What odds can I get on them winning the whole thing right now? Okay, I'm not betting. Anyway, as I said at the top, I love this competition. The end of the season, it's just so good, so intense. I feel like I had to do a standalone just to sort of trumpet what a special year it's been. If you're new to the Scrum of the Earth, the NPC is just one of the competitions we do cover here. Welcome to all of you. Please reach out if you'd like to get in touch. It's always great to hear from you. So, to all of you across the globe, cheers. Talk to you soon. And of course, be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, Nate.
You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?